As European co-editor, what are your aims and ambitions for The Oncologist?
Well, first of all, it's a very exciting new adventure, the European edition of The Oncologist. My major aims are to make The Oncologist a major journal within Europe, as it has become within the US. And in particular, in terms of the European perspective section, beginning to focus on those issues in cancer medicine, in cancer research that really affect us as Europeans.
And what do you think are those issues? What are the main issues that you feel really we should be getting out there and looking at?
Well, there are many of them, and they come under different categories. Across Europe, we have very different cancer treatment systems, public systems, private systems. And one of the big issues actually is trying to bring about a uniformity of access to high quality care for every patient and for every cancer patient living in Europe, be that in Ireland, be that in the UK, be it in Italy or Greece, for example. So I think one of the big challenges facing European oncology is to really stand up and say, yes, we have to do better for our cancer patients. And I want the oncologist really to be one of the drivers, and in some respects a bully pulpit, to bring out those issues that may be relevant within the UK, may be relevant within France or Germany, but they're probably common to all of us, so that cancer patients ultimately benefit.
How do you think European Perspectives is going to achieve those aims?
In a number of different ways. I think, first of all, highlighting what the issues are. So, for example, can we increase the number of cancer patients in Europe getting into cancer clinical trials? We know that clinical trials are very important, both in terms of developing new advances for cancer patients and for new paradigms in cancer care. We also know that outcomes for cancer patients are much better when they are treated within cancer clinical trials. Yet the vast majority of patients never get access to a clinical trial. So that's something that we've got to really start to do something about. We also have access issues. Patients getting long delays in terms of both diagnosis or getting access to treatment. We also right across Europe have, in certain areas, difficulties in people accessing the right type of care in the right type of setting. And that's one of the things here in the UK and in Northern Ireland we've been working quite hard at, is to make sure that we shorten the timelines in terms of both diagnosis and getting access to care, but also that patients get into the appropriate care setting, multidisciplinary type setting, where they get optimal care and treatment.
And how do you think a pan-European approach is going to address some of these issues and obstacles?
A pan-European approach is one that will help in a number of ways as well. First of all, it actually brings the issue out at a very different level rather than just an individual country. Each individual country will have its own challenges, and those challenges will be different depending on where they are in relationship to the structure of their health service, and in particular the structure of the care that they have built around cancer care, be it surgery, be it radiation oncology, be it diagnosis, or be it medical oncology. However, if we can, through the European perspectives, begin to point to, in some respects, a European Bill of Rights for cancer patients, a European charter that says here's a minimum expectation in terms of quality of standard of care. Here's a minimum expectation that we would set for cancer patients right across Europe. And if that can be adopted by the European cancer community, that will be a major step forward.
And in terms of European perspectives and its dialogue, obviously this dialogue needs to be two-way. How do you see it being able to achieve that in relation to a two-way dialogue with the European oncology community?
I think the two-way dialogue is one of the really important aspects of the European perspectives. First of all, the dialogue needs to be two-way between the patient and the cancer community, as well as across the cancer community. The dialogue also needs to be with policymakers with the funders, because the models, as I've said, in terms of the provision of care across Europe are very different depending what country we're talking about. But there are components within each of those countries where care is at the very, very highest level, and indeed where there are elements of best practice that we should all be learning from. And it's through that type of dialogue that we're going to pick that out and indeed be able possibly to pilot or adopt those in certain other countries or in certain areas of countries. We also need a dialogue about cancer research. Cancer patients have to be part of that dialogue. Increasingly, cancer patients really have to be very, very informed about the types of research that are now being done, not just in Europe but globally, why they're being done, why they're being carried out in a certain way. And in some respects, they must be partners in that whole process. So therefore, that dialogue is also very, very important. When you have this type of dialogue, you end up with a much greater informed debate, with the Cancer Centre at the heart of that debate and actually at the centre of that debate. In my experience, when that happens, we end up with better solutions being brought forward, we end up with better care, and we also end up with a more informed policy setting within cancer care programs, no matter what country you're talking about.
One of the unique aspects of European perspectives will be having very much a functional and interactive online component. How do you think this is going to really drive European perspectives as something that will be, the readership will really engage with?
Well, we live in a modern era of technology and communication technology that even 10 years ago we wouldn't have dreamed about. Whether it's tweets, whether it's apps, the whole idea now of communication and the methodology and mechanism behind that is very different. So doing these types of interviews, videos on certain topics, and then presenting these online will allow people to come back and comment on them. And I know from experience actually that a lot of those comments can be very constructive. Indeed, ideas can germinate from those, and sometimes various groups can be formed around some of the issues that actually come through this type of setting. Not everybody can sit down, read and understand a clinical research or scientific research paper. Most people can relate to interviews, pick up themes that they believe to be important, and react and indeed act on some of those. So I think it reaches a broader audience, allows a broader audience to actually engage in a very meaningful way, and it's one that we collectively again need to capitalize on.
And to sort of take that discussion a little further, do you see opportunities in relation to CME, for example?
Yes, I mean, we now live in a climate of continuing medical education and education in general. Within the UK, we're about to move into the whole revalidation process for doctors, which is underpinned by CME and a very important development. And so therefore, I think the whole educational dimension of both European perspectives, but also this type of audio review of topics is going to be very important for practitioners as well, not only from a CME point of view, but about keeping up to date with what the real issues are, because in some ways, we don't know the answers to some of these things that we're debating today. We know that they are real issues. We know where the answers may lie, but we still have an evolution and a journey to get to where those answers actually are, or what those answers actually are.
And finally, say in 12 months' time, where do you feel the oncologist will be, and how do you feel European Perspectives is going to achieve that?
Well, 12 months from now, I think the European Perspectives will have become anchored within the lexicon of the oncology community as a very important medium for addressing addressing really pertinent and key issues of debate for cancer within Europe. And if it has achieved that, then in my view it will have been a huge success.
Thank you very much, Paddy.
Thank you.